I want to be a simple, very simple, complicated person.
Can you help her?
Hollywood's golden age, a time of glitz, glamour, and some truly awful acting. But what happens when talent doesn't matter, and all you need is a pretty face to make it big? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 20 actresses who proved that in old Hollywood, being beautiful was often more important than knowing how to act. These women weren't winning Oscars for their performances, but they still filled theaters, sold magazines, and became icons. From stars who couldn't deliver a convincing line to those who were cast purely for their curves, these actresses turned looks into legacy, even if critics weren't impressed. So why did Hollywood keep giving roles to women who clearly weren't born for the stage or screen? The answer is simple. In an industry built on fantasy, sometimes image was everything. Stay with us as we reveal the names, the stories, and the stunning truth behind the stars who made it to the top without mastering their craft. You'll never look at some of these legendary faces the same way again. Because in Tinseltown, talent was optional, but beauty was required. Hedy Lamarr, the genius trapped in a pretty face. In Hollywood's golden age, Hedy Lamarr wasn't just famous, she was worshipped. Branded as the most beautiful woman in film, her face lit up movie screens around the world. But behind those perfect features, critics whispered the same thing: she couldn't act. Lamarr's performances were often described as wooden, distant, and lacking emotion. But did that stop her rise to fame? Not at all. Studios weren't interested in her range, they were interested in her reflection. Directors framed her like a painting, letting her beauty do the heavy lifting while her lines fell flat. Ironically, Hedy's real brilliance had nothing to do with Hollywood. Off-screen, she co-invented a technology that became the foundation for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. "Any girl can be glamorous," she once said. "All you have to do is stand still and look stupid." Hollywood never cared about her mind. They only cared about her image. But Hedy wasn't the only star whose looks masked a lack of talent. The next actress dazzled in the silent era, but when sound arrived, her fame faded fast. Let's talk about Mae Murray, the star who couldn't find her voice. Mae Murray, the silent star who couldn't transition. In the glittering world of silent film, Mae Murray was royalty. With her signature pout and dramatic flair, she earned the nickname, the girl with the bee-stung lips. For a time, that was all it took to captivate audiences. Her beauty, elaborate costumes, and exaggerated expressions fit perfectly in an era where acting was more about appearance than emotion. Mae wasn't just a star, she was a symbol of 1920s glamour. But when Hollywood evolved, Mae didn't. The arrival of talkies in the late 1920s was the ultimate test for silent film stars, and Murray failed spectacularly. Her voice, high-pitched and unrefined, didn't match the grand image studios had built around her. What once passed as dramatic now seemed overacted and hollow. Audiences who adored her silent performances cringed when they finally heard her speak. Directors stopped calling, and studios quickly replaced her with newer faces who could handle dialogue and deliver real emotion. Yet Mae refused to believe her time was over. Clinging to her past fame, she famously declared, "I am a star. I will always be a star." But Hollywood is a town that forgets fast, and Mae became a cautionary tale of a beauty queen who couldn't adapt. Her final years were marked by financial troubles and public appearances where she still dressed like it was 1925, long after the world had moved on. The tragic part? Mae wasn't alone. Hollywood was filled with actresses who learned the hard way that looks could open doors, but they couldn't keep them open forever. And while Mae's downfall came with the sound of her own voice, the next actress didn't need words to get noticed. All Dolores Del Rio needed was to be exotic enough for the cameras, even if her performances left audiences underwhelmed. Let's step into the story of Hollywood's first Latina icon, where beauty spoke louder than talent. Dolores Del Rio, exotic beauty, overwhelming talent. In the 1920s and 30s, Dolores Del Rio became one of Hollywood's first Latina stars. With her stunning features and graceful presence, she was every studio executive's dream. But when it came to acting, many critics weren't impressed. Dolores was often cast as the exotic beauty, a decorative figure in lavish sets, draped in glamorous costumes. Her roles rarely demanded emotional depth, and when they did, audiences noticed her performances could be stiff and distant. Still, Hollywood didn't care. She was a symbol, not a character. As one reviewer bluntly put it, she acts best when she says nothing at all. Del Rio survived in the industry thanks to her elegance and the roles tailored around her appearance. Substance wasn't required, not when style sold tickets. And speaking of style, the next actress became a favorite during wartime, not because of her acting chops, but because her face looked perfect on every poster. Let's meet Virginia Mayo. The star who proved being photogenic was enough? Virginia Mayo, the pretty face in every poster. During World War II, Virginia Mayo wasn't known for delivering powerhouse performances. She was known for boosting morale. As a pin-up queen, her image decorated barracks and lockers across America. On screen, she often played the beautiful sidekick, the love interest, or the damsel in distress. Critics were quick to point out that Mayo's acting was, well, forgettable. She lacked dramatic weight and rarely carried a film on her own. But in Hollywood, that didn't matter. As long as she looked stunning next to leading men like James Cagney or Bob Hope, the studios were happy. Virginia once joked, "I wasn't hired to act, I was hired to decorate." And she wasn't wrong. Her career thrived on looks alone, a reminder that in Golden Age Hollywood, being camera-ready could outweigh talent. But while Mayo's fame was built on pin-up beauty, the next actress found herself typecast as a blonde bombshell, despite having little to offer beyond a flirtatious smile. Up next, Marilyn Maxwell, the starlet Hollywood never took seriously. Marilyn Maxwell, the blonde bombshell nobody took seriously. Marilyn Maxwell had the look Hollywood loved. Blonde hair, a dazzling smile, and just enough charm to land her in film after film. But when it came to acting, Maxwell's range was as limited as the roles she was offered. Marketed as a budget Marilyn Monroe, she was cast in repetitive flirtatious roles, often playing the pretty distraction rather than a character with depth. Critics and co-stars alike noted her lack of serious acting ability. But studios didn't care. She filled the screen with glamour, and that was enough. Off-screen, Marilyn was better known for her high-profile romances, including rumored affairs with stars like Frank Sinatra and Bob Hope. Her personal life kept her name in the headlines, even when her performances didn't. Maxwell once quipped, "They don't give you awards for being easy on the eyes." And she was right, but they did give you roles. Her fame was proof that in Hollywood, being beautiful could take you far, even if your acting didn't. But Marilyn wasn't alone in mastering the art of being famous for the wrong reasons. The next woman turned glamour, gossip, and a European accent into a lifelong career, without needing much talent at all. Stay tuned, because Zsa Zsa Gabor was never really acting. She was just being Zsa Zsa. Zsa Zsa Gabor, famous for being famous. When you think of Zsa Zsa Gabor, you don't remember an iconic performance. You remember the diamonds, the accent, and the endless headlines. Zsa Zsa was a master of Hollywood fame, but when it came to acting, well, that was never really her focus. Born in Hungary, Zsa Zsa arrived in Hollywood with beauty, charm, and a European mystique that instantly turned heads. Studios didn't cast her for dramatic roles or emotional depth. They cast her because she looked like a star. Whether she was delivering lines in films like Moulin Rouge or just flashing a smile on a red carpet, Zsa Zsa knew how to stay in the spotlight. Critics often called her performances flat or overly theatrical. But Zsa Zsa didn't mind. "I am a marvelous housekeeper," she once joked. "Every time I leave a man, I keep his house." It was this wit, paired with her glamorous image, that kept her famous long after her forgettable films faded. In truth, Zsa Zsa Gabor was Hollywood's first reality star before reality TV existed. She didn't need talent when she had personality, beauty, and a scandalous love life. But while Zsa Zsa dazzled with charm alone, the next actress relied on dance, letting her graceful moves distract from her lack of acting ability. Let's glide over to Vera Ellen, the ballerina who Hollywood kept far away from heavy dialogue. Vera Ellen, dance star who couldn't act. When Vera Ellen appeared on screen, audiences couldn't take their eyes off her, not because of her acting, but because of her feet. A breathtaking dancer, Vera Ellen twirled her way through Hollywood musicals, becoming a staple of films like White Christmas. But once the music stopped, her weaknesses became clear. Vera Ellen's dialogue delivery was often stiff, lacking the emotional depth expected of a leading lady. Studios quickly figured out the formula: give her fewer lines, more dance numbers, and always surround her with stronger actors to carry the scenes. Her beauty and grace made her the perfect visual centerpiece, but no one was hiring her for dramatic monologues. "Why talk when you can dance?" she was rumored to say, fully aware that her talent lay in movement, not words. Hollywood didn't mind. They weren't looking for a Shakespearean actress. They wanted someone who could light up a stage with a smile and a spin. But while Vera Ellen danced past her critics, the next actress didn't have that luxury. She was cast for one reason only: to be the next blonde bombshell, even if her acting left audiences cringing. Enter Mamie Van Doren, Hollywood's answer to Marilyn Monroe without the talent. Mamie Van Doren, the Monroe clone without the talent. In the 1950s, every studio wanted their own Marilyn Monroe, and Mamie Van Doren was Universal's attempt to cash in on the craze. With platinum blonde hair, pouty lips, and a curvy figure, Mamie fit the visual mold perfectly. But when it came to acting, that was another story. Mamie was cast in a string of B-movies, titles like Untamed Youth and Teacher's Pet, where her job was simple: look stunning, deliver a few lines, and keep the audience's attention with her sex appeal. Critics often described her performances as awkward, overly exaggerated, or downright laughable. But Mamie knew exactly what Hollywood wanted. "I was the girl who wore the tight sweater and got the wolf whistles," she once said. And she played that part flawlessly, even if her acting didn't win awards. Despite lacking critical acclaim, Mamie became a cult icon, proving that in Hollywood, a pretty face and a well-placed wiggle could overshadow any lack of skill. Yet, while Mamie was stuck in low-budget films, the next actress had all the makings of a leading lady: stunning looks and big studio backing. But she couldn't quite convince anyone with her performances. Let's talk about Yvonne De Carlo, the beauty queen of B-movies. Yvonne De Carlo beauty cast in B-movies. Before she became known as Lily Munster on TV, Yvonne De Carlo was Hollywood's go-to exotic beauty. With her dark hair, striking features, and sultry presence, she was cast in dozens of adventure films and costume dramas. But behind the glamorous costumes was an actress whose talent never quite matched her appearance. Yvonne often found herself in roles that required little more than standing around looking stunning, while male leads drove the plot. Critics pointed out her limited emotional range, and directors rarely trusted her with complex characters. Despite this, DiCarlo's beauty kept her working through the 1940s and 50s, even if most of her films ended up in the bargain bin. It wasn't until she embraced the campy, comedic role of Lily Munster that she finally found a character that fit, one where acting chops weren't exactly necessary. Yvonne once quipped, "I never said I was the greatest actress. I just knew how to make an entrance." And sometimes, that was enough. But while Yvonne floated through Hollywood on looks alone, the next actress became a star for one very specific reason: her figure. Acting was almost an afterthought. Because when Jane Russell walked into a room, nobody cared if she could act. They were too busy looking at the body. Jane Russell, the body that sold tickets. When Howard Hughes discovered Jane Russell, he wasn't scouting for raw acting talent. He was obsessed with her curves. Cast in the controversial film The Outlaw, Russell's figure became more famous than her face, and certainly more famous than her acting. Russell quickly became known as the Body, a nickname that followed her throughout her career. Critics often slammed her performances as emotionless and flat, but Hughes and the studios didn't care. They plastered her image across posters, focusing on her physical appeal rather than her skills. Jane herself was fully aware of how Hollywood viewed her. "Publicity can be terrible," she once said, "but only if you don't have any." She leaned into her image, knowing it was her ticket to fame. While Russell did land roles in bigger films, her acting was never the draw. It was the marketing machine built around her. And so, Jane Russell became yet another reminder that in Hollywood's golden age, talent was optional when beauty sold out theaters. But while Jane was making headlines for her looks, another starlet was proving that you didn't even need dialogue to become a sensation, just a swimsuit and a smile. Next up, Esther Williams, the mermaid who swam her way to stardom. Esther Williams, swimming her way to stardom. In a town full of actresses, Esther Williams didn't need to outact anyone. She just needed a pool. Dubbed the $1 Million Mermaid, Williams made a splash in Hollywood, quite literally, starring in a series of aquatic musicals throughout the 1940s and 50s. But while audiences marveled at her underwater performances, no one was talking about her acting. Esther wasn't cast for emotional depth or dramatic skill. She was cast because she looked stunning in a swimsuit and could perform synchronized swimming routines with grace. Her films were built around elaborate water ballets, not dialogue-heavy scenes. In fact, many of her movies minimized her speaking parts altogether. Even Esther knew where her fame came from. "Wet, she was a star," one critic joked. Williams herself once admitted, "I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance, I could only swim." But in Hollywood, that was enough. As long as she dazzled in sequins and sparkled under the water, no one cared if she could deliver a heartfelt monologue. Yet, while Esther floated to fame on athleticism and beauty, the next actress found herself admired for her face, even if her performances left audiences cold. Let's dive into the story of Gene Tierney, a star who proved that sometimes looks really could kill a scene. Gene Tierney, stunning but struggled with delivery. Gene Tierney was often described as one of the most beautiful women ever captured on film. With her sharp cheekbones, piercing eyes, and flawless elegance, she was every director's dream, visually at least. But when it came to acting, Tierney often struggled to connect emotionally with her roles. Critics frequently noted that her performances felt distant, almost icy, especially in films like Laura and Leave Her to Heaven. Directors learned to frame her like a living portrait, focusing on her stunning profile rather than asking too much from her as an actress. Even Tierney was aware of her reputation. "People look at me and think I'm sophisticated," she once said, "but that's just because I don't smile a lot." Despite the critiques, her beauty carried her career, making her a staple of 1940s Hollywood glamour. The cameras loved her, even if audiences didn't always believe her. But while Gene Tierney's aloof style was packaged as elegance, the next actress built her entire fame on sensuality. with acting taking a back seat to a single unforgettable scene. Because when Anita Ekberg stepped into a fountain, Hollywood stopped caring about her lines. Anita Ekberg, a European beauty lost in translation. For Anita Ekberg, all it took was a midnight swim in Rome's Trevi Fountain to secure her place in cinema history. Her role in La Dolce Vita became iconic, but not because of her acting. Anita's voluptuous figure and striking face made her a symbol of sensuality, but few would argue she was ever a great actress. When Hollywood brought Ekberg over from Sweden, it wasn't for her thespian skills. She was cast in films purely for her looks, often playing the glamorous foreign seductress. Directors wrote roles around her appearance, keeping dialogue minimal and focusing on her physical presence. Critics were blunt, often describing her performances as flat or awkward. But Anita didn't seem to mind. "I was born to make love, not movies," she famously quipped. Her fame was built on image alone, and in a town obsessed with beauty, that was enough to keep her in the spotlight. But while Ekberg embraced her role as a living statue, the next actress was discovered by accident, sipping a soda, and turned into a star before she even knew how to act. Let's talk about Lana Turner, the original sweater girl who couldn't quite deliver a line. Lana Turner, the sweater girl who couldn't emote. In a city where everyone chased fame, Lana Turner wasn't even looking. Fame found her. At just 16 years old, she was spotted at a soda fountain in Los Angeles, sipping a Coke, when a talent scout decided she had the perfect face and figure for Hollywood. Overnight, Lana became the talk of Tinseltown, earning the nickname the Sweater Girl, a title that had far more to do with her curves than her craft. From the start, Turner wasn't hired for her acting ability. She was cast as the embodiment of glamour, the sultry femme fatale, the innocent beauty, the woman every man wanted and every woman envied. But when it came to delivering lines or showing emotional depth, Lana often fell short. Directors quickly realized that her greatest talent was simply being looked at. Critics were blunt, calling her performances flat and overly reliant on her appearance. Yet, audiences didn't seem to care. Lana lit up the screen, not because of what she said, but because of how she looked saying it. And Hollywood knew exactly how to package her. Turner herself once admitted, "A star is made, not born," acknowledging that her image was carefully crafted by studio executives who valued beauty over talent. But Lana's story didn't stay confined to movie sets. Her off-screen life became just as famous, if not more so, than her films. Multiple marriages, high-profile affairs, and a scandal that rocked the nation in 1958, when her teenage daughter killed Lana's abusive boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, in what was ruled justifiable homicide. The tabloids couldn't get enough, and neither could the public. In a strange twist, it was Turner's real-life drama, not her acting, that kept her relevant. She became a living symbol of Hollywood's obsession with glamour, scandal, and tragedy. Despite decades in the business, Lana Turner was never celebrated as a great actress, but she didn't have to be. In an era where studios valued appearance above all else, Lana proved that being a vision was often more important than being a voice. And while Lana's fame was built on looks and headlines, the actress who came before her took the same path, but with even less effort to hide it. She wasn't cast for depth, nuance, or skill. No, Jean Harlow was Hollywood's first true blonde bombshell, and acting was never really part of the package. Because when Jean Harlow stepped onto a set, everyone knew she wasn't there to perform, she was there to shine. Jean Harlow, platinum blonde with a script problem. Before Marilyn Monroe ever dazzled on screen, there was Jean Harlow, Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, with her striking platinum hair, flawless skin, and a smile that could stop traffic. Harlow didn't just become a star, she became a symbol of 1930s sex appeal. But behind all the glamour and provocative charm was a simple truth. Jean Harlow wasn't cast for her acting talent, because she didn't really have much. Harlow's early performances were often described as stiff, lacking emotional depth, and overly reliant on her looks. Critics were quick to notice that when a role demanded complexity or vulnerability, Jean struggled to deliver anything beyond playful flirtation or cheeky one-liners. But in an era obsessed with image, that didn't matter. Studios quickly figured out how to market her. They dressed her in figure-hugging gowns, gave her characters that oozed seduction, and made sure the camera loved her even if the script didn't. Serious roles were off-limits, not because Jean didn't want them, but because no one believed she could handle them. Even those around her poked fun at her limited range. Co-stars and directors would joke that Jean didn't need a script, just good lighting. Harlow, always self-aware, embraced the persona. "Men like me because I don't wear a brassiere," she famously quipped, knowing full well that her fame was built on sex appeal, not Shakespearean skill. Yet, despite the criticism, audiences adored her. She was the fantasy Hollywood wanted, playful, provocative, and untouchable. And when she tragically died at just 26 years old from kidney failure, her legend was sealed. Jean Harlow would forever remain the young, radiant bombshell, frozen in time before the industry could cast her aside for aging or evolving. Her death also protected her legacy from the harsher critiques that might have come if she'd lived longer. After all, as long as she was remembered in black and white glamour shots, no one would dwell too much on the fact that she was never a great actress. Jean Harlow proved that in Tinseltown, talent could take a back seat if you had the right look and the right studio behind you. But while Harlow leaned into her bombshell image, embracing fame and the spotlight, the next actress had a very different relationship with Hollywood. Kim Novak didn't chase stardom. It was forced upon her. And even as she rose to fame, she made it clear: acting was never her passion. Let's close with the story of Kim Novak, the reluctant star who never wanted to play the game but had no choice. Kim Novak, the starlet who hated acting. Kim Novak had the kind of beauty that made Hollywood executives see dollar signs. With her soft voice, dreamy eyes, and ethereal presence, she was destined for stardom, whether she wanted it or not. Pushed into the limelight by Columbia Pictures, Novak was cast in major films like Vertigo. But behind the scenes, she was uncomfortable, shy, and uninterested in fame. Critics often called her performances stiff, lacking passion, and emotionally distant. Director Alfred Hitchcock famously clashed with her during Vertigo, frustrated by her reluctance to fully embrace the role. But Novak wasn't chasing awards. She was surviving a system that valued her looks far more than her abilities. "I didn't want to be a sex symbol," she later confessed. "I wanted to be an artist." Yet Hollywood had other plans. Despite her lack of enthusiasm for acting, Novak became a star, proving once again that in Golden Age Hollywood, being beautiful was often more important than being talented. Because in the end, these actresses weren't remembered for award-winning performances. They were remembered for fitting perfectly into a studio's idea of what a star should look like.